And now, on to our conversation. In a career spanning 50 years, Tony and Emmy Award recipient DeShields has distinguished himself as an unparalleled actor, director, choreographer, and educator. DeShields originated the role of Hermes on Broadway in the musical Hadestown, winning the 2019 Tony Award for Best Actor in a Featured Role in a Musical and the 2020 Grammy Award for Best Musical Theater Album for his performance. In 2018, DeShields was the recipient of the 8th Annual Off-Broadway Alliance Legend Award and the 33rd Annual Bob Harrington Life Achievement Bistro Award. Other accolades include the 2009 National Black Theater Festival's Living Legend Award and the 2007 Village Voice Obie Award for Sustained Excellence of Performance. A multiple Tony Award nominee, he is best known for his show-stopping performance in 4 legendary Broadway productions: The Wiz, Ain't Misbehavin', Play On, and The Full Monty. Leading the conversation is Chicago Midwest Emmy Award winner, theater reviewer, and friend of Sarah Siddons, Ed Tracy. And now, without further ado, our conversation with André.
Welcome home.
Thank you. It is so good to be home.
Sweet home, Chicago.
Sweet home, Chicago. And you know, that adage is totally incorrect, that you cannot go home again, because here we are. Thank you for welcoming me home.
Andre, you've been a very busy person during the pandemic. It was almost a break from 8 shows a week on Broadway. So for everyone else, but not for you.
Oh, no, right, not for me. No, I was fortunate in that I could remain gainfully employed during the pandemic. But it wasn't luck. It wasn't happenstance. I'm a man who lives his life by signs and omens. And I keep my ear to the ground and I listen to those wise people who've been telling us how to live our best lives for 5,000 years. And the pandemic was a huge complication, a huge difficulty, a huge hurdle, a problem. And what I have learned in my 75 years on the earth plane is that when presented with a problem, do not avoid it, because if you do, it will grow in perspective, and ultimately, it will loom large and seemingly insurmountable on the horizon. Conversely, Conversely, if you approach the problem, you then become aware of its porosity. It has holes in it. And then before you know it, you're on the other side. You step through one of those holes, and you're on the other side of the problem.
What would you say to college students who, you were a college student coming to Chicago, a tremendous opportunity at a really significant time in a groundbreaking show, and changing the way theater's viewed. So what would you say to students who are coming out of this pandemic now, who have had 2 years interrupted in their life, in their creative life, to pick these things up, to take that journey?
The pandemic is not without purpose. It's not an accident, it's not a mistake. It's the universe, if you will, God, if you will, the creator, if you will. It is that power that is greater than any one of us or any aggregate of us that is reminding us that we breached the covenant that was made, which is, I will provide every energy that you need. That's what the universe is, a mass of energy, dynamic, explosive, constantly changing. From that, you can do whatever you dream. But here's your part of the bargain. You must provide effective husbandry for the natural phenomenon that's providing that energy.
And we have not.
And we have not. We have not. We have expanded exponentially, and we have made our goal and destination constant growth, never-ending growth. Do you know what the definition of never-ending growth in medicine is? Cancer. So we now have a world that's affected by cancer, and we don't know we know the diagnosis, but we don't know how to heal it. So the universe is speaking to us through the pandemic saying, stop. Stop in the name of love. Before you break my heart. Wait a minute, there's one more line. Think it over. Now, we didn't choose to do that. So, boom, pandemic. You can't do anything but stop. You can't do anything but think it over.
And how did your life change? When Hadestown stopped, and I know where you live, you're not far from that theater.
No, I live in the bedroom of Broadway.
And New York was empty.
New York was frightened. The entire city was walking on tenterhooks, eggshells, not knowing what had happened, what is going to happen, and what to do about it. Now, I have said in my master classes to young people, at some point in your career, your resume will become irrelevant. What does that mean? Well, your resume is 1 page long, and you're only as good as your last entry. Start working on your curriculum vitae, on your life experience. Now, I could not have told them at the time because a pandemic is coming. But at some point on your journey toward your destiny, you're going to meet the Sphinx, who's going to ask you this conundrum. And if you can answer it, your destiny will rise up and meet you. If you cannot answer it, the Sphinx will eat your ass. Think of the pandemic as your encounter with the Sphinx, because what it wrought was something that we speak often. Oh, if only the playing field were level. Well, the pandemic leveled the playing field. In this sense, no one knew anything and everybody knew nothing. That's when you have to understand. And I'm having this conversation with Ed Tracy, but this is for those young people who performed earlier spectacularly from the confluence of those 3 most important elements: mind, body, and spirit. You have to understand there's no one like you. There never has been anyone like you, and there shall never be anyone like you. Therefore, know yourself, be yourself. Authenticity is everything. Here's your opportunity to make that discovery, to explore, to understand that there's a horizon for you to discover. And if you don't discover it, it's going to be obscure forever. There's a mystery that needs to be decoded. And if you don't decode it, it's going to remain a mystery forever. There's a treasure that you need to uncover. And if you don't uncover it, it's going to remain a black X on a map forever. There are a myriad of pretty objects, pretty things to distract you. But make this covenant with yourself. Pursue only those blessings that have your name written on it. Why? Because all the other blessings belong to someone else.
Is it difficult to look back at this time and realize that all of the other industries and all of the other needs were met well before the arts were really recognized as important? And isn't it true, too, that our society wraps itself around the arts, that it's central to everything that is good and decent and meaningful and intelligent?
Well, our society professes to need the arts, professes that it is an essential element in being a complete human being and a good citizen. But our society doesn't invest in the arts. Our society doesn't even invest in education. Our society invests in accumulating money, in profit, in things that grow incessantly into festering wounds that we don't have the minutest clue of how to heal. We're in the blame game. When something goes wrong, it's your fault.
Well, I've been hoping that I wouldn't screw this up tonight.
Right, and you have not.
All I said to myself all day, just don't suck, just don't
Right.
suck. Because, André, I know you're mid-career now at 75.
Yes, that is true.
And you've had all these opportunities, tremendous opportunities in these shows, but also you delivered so much good to people. I look back at all of the performances, particularly Jungle Book, which I seem to get a big kick out of. It was
Right. Out of all
terrific
of
here
Jungle Book.
at the Goodman Theater. But also Hadestown, which appears to have every single element. It seems like it was written for you. I mean, I know that the show originated 12 miles from where I grew up in Vermont. I wasn't there at the time, but tell me about a little bit of the journey, how it first kind of happened for you, because I know you came in and out of the show. Just how did you discover it? How did it discover you?
First of all, many people say, did they write that for you? I said, no, they didn't write it for me. But when Anais Mitchell and her group of troubadours were in Vermont, traveling and singing and healing. And then in 2010, they did that first album. It wasn't until 2012 that they came to New York because they wanted to experiment with theatricalizing the music. So they did their first experimental contract, which we mistakenly call a showcase. But that's what we called it, a showcase. And I was asked to create the role of Hermes. That's another word that's used loosely, because when they asked me to create the role of Hermes, that's exactly what I did. I created Hermes. Now, we only spent about 3 weeks together, and this was before CRISPR was discovered. But I said to the character that I created, here's a piece of my DNA. I'm putting it in a boomerang, and I'm putting it inside you. Now, go about your business of growing, developing, discovering. But when you know it's time for this show to become a commercial success, come back to me. So, it had its New York premiere at the New York Theater Workshop. And that's how the world at large became familiar with Hadestown. And a young man by the name of Christopher Sullivan was Hermes. And then, as you know, things change. People take different directions. You come to a fork in the road, and you take that direction. Then they went to the Citadel in Toronto, where another gentleman played Hermes. Meanwhile, the show is consolidating itself. It's becoming truer and more irresistible. So they set up a series of labs, which is different than a showcase, and they come back to New York. And that's when Aeneas says to Rachel Chafkin, you know, we should call André DeShields, see if he's available. So Rachel came to see a show I was doing and visited me backstage, and we had a conversation, but I knew she was peeping. She was trying to see me, as it were. And they asked me to join the lab, which I did. And that's when they realized who Hermes was, André DeShields. Now, why? Because throughout my entire career, I've been the magical Negro. I have no regrets, but The Wiz was the magical Negro. The Full Monty was a magical Negro. Play On was a magical Negro. And so was Ain't Misbehavin'. And I'm hungry to have someone want me for my intellect, for my education, for my ability to master the language of my oppressor, so that I am never misunderstood and I never misunderstand. Education has been my beacon, because when I was growing up, I was the scum of the earth for no other reason than the melanin in my skin. So I had to think about this. How am I going to get along in the world if I can't get above the gutter in people's perspective? And that's when I decided, as a young man, I'm going to speak English better than any white person you'll ever know. And that's the way I leveled the playing field.
In a number of shows,
In a number of shows, but it wasn't until...
but also in your real life.
In my real life, yes. But in my real life, being able to master the English language has kept me from being beaten by the police. Because I've been in situations where they were ready to take me down. And I'd use a 7-syllable word, and they were like, what? Right? And in my career as a performer, there's never been a request for my erudition until Hadestown, which makes so much sense to me because it breaks the barriers of all the dogma that we are reared by in society. You've got to understand that Greek mythology is pagan. No holds barred. Well, you know about Zeus, right? Mm-hmm. He was turned on by mortals, so he would change himself into a goose or a bull so he could have what he wanted.
Is there anything you want?
Yes. Specifically, I want to meet Louis Gates Jr. because of the work that he's done with Ancestry. I know I'm not Oprah Winfrey, but perhaps one day I'll achieve the celebrity that will make him curious about me.
Oh, there are a lot of people that are curious about you.
Yeah, but not who have that expertise about Ancestry. Now, why? Because I want Louis Gates Jr. to help me find the path to the throne that I know I'm heir to. See, people think I'm putting this on. No, even my parents said to me, we don't know where you came from. So, you know about the 1619 initiative, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So it makes sense to me that when Africans were kidnapped from the west coast of that continent, they didn't just kidnap ne'er-do-wells to force into human bondage. Some of them had to have been kings, queens, priestesses. And you don't lose that from your DNA, even when you're forced to be a slave. So I've been trying to, well, yes, I'm trying to answer the question, why do I bring nobility to everything I do, even when it isn't asked for?
What's the answer?
The answer is the original African who was kidnapped, became a slave in the New World, and is my ancestor, was a king.
I don't think anyone would disagree with you.
So that's what I bring to the potluck dinner.
But take us back
Yeah.
to your first night back on Broadway.
Right, September 2nd.
September 2nd,
Mm-hmm.
which is the first show back.
Yeah.
Announcement for the 14th, but then Hadestown.
Well, yeah, because once you corral the thoroughbreds, right? Wicked, The Lion King, the Book of Mormon, and Hamilton, right? Once you get them all corralled, then you have to jockey for position. So everyone's waiting for September 14th for those shows to open. But they're still waiting for their drug. So Hadestown says, oh, well, we can deliver that 2 weeks ahead of them. And the audience came back out of their minds.
Yeah. So take us to that night. I mean, there's a great video that shows you doing what you do, walking out, touching.
The members
Quiet.
of the, yeah.
Tell us about that. Tell us what happens.
The show starts with an explosion of energy. Those people who are the chorus members and who then play the parts of the workers in Hades come out and set up the furniture in the saloon, if you will, in the cabaret. And with that burst of energy, the audience applauds. Working against that, Hermes enters from stage left, moving monstrously slowly, floating, dancing, flying, gliding, and not looking at the audience, but sending out a very direct invitation. Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Profile. They go nuts because they've never experienced anything like this before. It's alien. But that's the beauty of theater. We have to remind ourselves and our audiences that there's nothing alien, nothing. But here it is among us. Now, Hermes is in a burnished silver suit. And he's floating. He's walking on water. And he reaches stage right. His jacket is buttoned. He very lugubriously and sensuously unbuttoned the jacket, but doesn't open it. And then he adjusts his collar, but doesn't open the jacket. And then one instant, he goes bang, and they see this vest that looks like the cosmos. And their delight reaches a new height. Now, on September 2nd, they realized they were in charge, not Hermes. So they screamed and yelled and stamped and cried for 2.5 minutes before they would allow me to say the first word. And I knew that. I said, okay, André, you are not in charge. Hermes is not in charge. The humanity that you serve is in charge right now. They'll let you know when you can apply the balm that you brought.
So we're here tonight to award you the Sarah Siddons Award, which is recognizing not only all of the stage work and humanitarian work that you do, but also who you are as a performer. And I can tell you that no greater honor for me to be here and listen to you, to be on the same stage with you.
That's kind of you to say. Thank you.
I want to just close this with a question to you about the future. For some of the performers we saw tonight, the students who have received this scholarship, and you saw videos of them, and what they're doing. It's amazing what they have done and how you can see in them the hope for the future. But I think there's a lyric in one of the shows that you've done that would be really fitting and appropriate for those students for the next step of this journey.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you know which lyric that is.
I do, but may I reveal it later?
You may.
Okay. I know
So-
exactly what the lyric is.
You do.
Yeah.
So we'll look forward to that. We'll look forward to your next step on your mid-career,
Yes.
because there's a lifetime ahead for you.
Oh, yes. Several lifetimes. People ask me, well, what, are you still ambitious? I said, oh, absolutely. I'm still ambitious, yeah. Well, what is it that you want to do? I want to break the Methuselah Code. Now, we accept Methuselah as the longest living person in the history of humanity. He lived 969 years. And mark that that's a palindrome. 969, forward and in reverse. It's the same thing, 969. So there's something magical, there's something divine, and something apocalyptic in that character, Methuselah. I want to live to 969 years. I want to experience how humanity evolves. Because right now, what the pandemic has also provided us is something that very few generations experience. The intersection of evolution and history. More often than not, evolution is ahead of history, or history is ahead of evolution. But right now, when people talk about the intersection, this will in the future be thought of as the era of Anthropomorphine, the height of the creature we know as man. And it will be seen in the context of a decaying world. This is our grand achievement right now.
Well, when you reach 969 years, I'm going to be right there with you.
Yeah, I was about to.
André Deshields.
Thank you. May I say one thing? And this doesn't have to be part of the conversation if we've run over time. But I'm sure we're all familiar with the term that we borrow from yoga, namaste, namaste, which means the divinity in me recognizes and salutes the divinity in you. I would like to increase our vocabulary and introduce a word to you. Maybe some of you know it. It comes from the nexus of Bantu languages, which are spoken in southeastern Africa. And the word is, the gesture is the same, but the word is Ubuntu. And Ubuntu means I am because you are. That's the deepest thing I've ever could share with you. I am because you are. Ubuntu.
Thank you, André.